Hi, welcome to my new video about modeling shoe lasts, orthopedic shoe lasts. And in this video I want to show you how I use different cages with different levels of detail to model orthopedic shoe lasts. But first I would like to explain a bit about the different formats that are used in CAD. I use sub-D lasts. You see two examples of them on the left, the orange and the green one. The green one is an orthopedic last, the orange one is a more standard last. And meshes, NURBS and NURBS polysurfaces. Meshes, I do not use meshes because, well, I use them to send my final product to the milling machine, but for modeling I don't think they're very useful for shoe last because they have too many control points, and well, their meshes are great for sculpting, detailed sculpting, but it's very difficult to model shoe lasts because they have a very limited curvature and it's hard to keep the overall shape while modeling, deforming meshes. And they also have so many control points that you need all kind of tricks to make smooth deformations. If I use these, it's difficult. So I don't use meshes. The other type is NURBS. NURBS are essentially a square with different amount of control points, and this square is squeezed and deformed into, in this case, a shoe last. They also have too many control points and they do not follow the curvature of the last. If you look at the feather line, the feather line is somewhere around here, but it's not sharp because the control points, they do not follow the curvature. The same for the heel. They're just crossing all the main lines, so it's very hard to model. It's the same thing as for a mesh, maybe a bit better because they have less control points than most meshes, but still. I worked a lot with NURBS surfaces, but I was never happy with them. We have here a polysurface. A polysurface consists of lots of NURBS surfaces. You cannot switch on control points just like that. You have to explode it into the different patches, and when you have a patch you can switch on the control points, but I think it's obvious that it's very hard to model this last. So I do not use polysurfaces for lasts. Then this is the geometry that I use, a sub-D. A bit hard to explain what a sub-D exactly is, but I'll just show you how it works. This last has a lot less control points than NURBS last, and also you see that the control points, they follow the curvature and they follow the feather line of the last, so it's much easier to make adjustments that do not corrupt the overall shape of the last. If I select few control points, I can drag them in a way that doesn't corrupt the shape of the last. I can make minor adjustments without getting a shape that's crazy. But this last, although it's very easy to adjust the shape, it has not enough control points to define the more complicated curvature you always need for orthopedic lasts. So you need more control points to be able to, let's say I want to give some extra room beneath the first metatarsal head. There are no control points there, so I can change the profile of the bottom, and for a standard shoe last that's enough. And you know, these are the minimum amount of control points you need to be able to change that curvature. But for orthopedics you need more. And lasts are always defining the last is always a struggle between the amount of control points you need to define the shape and to have the detail you want in your shape, how easy it is to deform the shape in a meaningful way. This last has a lot more control points, still a lot less than a mesh or most NURBS last, and the control points also follow the curvature of the last, and they follow the feather line. So it's you can model this last as you want. Let's say I want to give more room beneath the ankle. Have more room here. You see, I can also select faces instead of control points. You can also select edges if you want. See? So this is, I spent a lot of time to find this layout of control points that allows me to model the last in a way that I want and still have a minimum amount of control points. But there are a lot of control points, and it's not easy to change the overall shape of the last without corrupting the last shape. So how can we do that? How can we change the overall shape of the shoe last without corrupting it? You can do that with cages. And cages, I'll show you one cage, the most simple cage you can imagine. You can place it in a block, and now you can change the overall shape of the last without disrupting the overall shape. Problem with this cage is that it's a rectangular cage, and I want to have a cage that has more a last-like shape. Although I can create a cage with a lot more control points. I have here more, but I can make a cage consisting of hundreds of control points, but then I have the same problem again that I started with. So how can I create a cage that is not rectangular and has not so many control points? I'll show you in the next chapter. Let's say I have this scan of a foot cast of a quite deformed foot, and I want to make a last around it. I'll give you an example of a last I already modeled. It's this last, and you see it fits nicely, but it doesn't follow the scan exactly. I'll make it transparent. There's some extra room here at the ball, the lateral side. I have some extra room here. Here underneath the ankle. This is a bit smoothed out, and so are there. And here's extra room for the toes. It's a very pronated last. That means that the lateral side of the foot is much higher from the floor than the medial side. There's some extra room here behind the heel. So there are different features that a good orthopedic last needs to have. Now, how do I get from this last to this last? I'll hide this one and I'll copy this one. I'll hide this one for later use. Let's make it transparent so I can see what I'm doing. Well, the first thing I can do is simply scale this last. I can do that with a simple cage, or by scaling it in one direction. I can do it with this gumball. Now I can scale it in the Y direction, I can scale it in the X direction, I can scale it in the Z direction. But as you see, I will not come close. I need more pronation here. The ball line is different. All kinds of differences that I cannot achieve by dragging this last in just the X, Y or Z direction. If I use a more complicated cage, but still a rectangular cage, I have more possibilities, but still it's not easy, and things tend to deform quite quickly into a shape I don't want. See, I already go wrong here, because this lump here, I don't want this lump there. And when I want to give extra room here, well, it simply doesn't react the way I want it. I can put it in a cage with a lot more control points, but things get only more complicated, and well, it's very difficult to achieve what I try to achieve with this system. So what I need is a cage that has more or less the shape of a last. For this I have several cages here as an example. We've had these 3 with a few, some more, and a lot of control points. I don't want those. And here I have 3 cages that follow the shape of the last. And these are 3 cages that have different levels of detail. And now my workflow is that I start to use this cage with just a few control points. Then when I'm very close to the last that I want, I use this cage, which has more details and more control points. And finally, This is the control cage of the sub D itself, and it has, this represents all the control points the sub D last has. Now when I compare it with this, it's the same amount of control points. Here I have my basic sub D last that fits inside this cage, and now I'm going to make it fit to this foot scan. You can speed up the video if you want. I'll just show you in real time what I'm doing. I'll make it transparent to make it more clearly what I'm doing. I'll adjust the heel lift. Just playing with it. I'm just playing with it until it comes close. You see that the flexibility of this system. I'll give it some more pronation. Okay. A bit more to the back. As you can imagine, this is quite a difficult last to model, so I didn't want to make it too simple. And talking and modeling together is also not so easy. Okay, see there's a bit room here, but no worries, I'll deal with that later. I hope you understand what I'm trying to achieve here. Okay. This is a tricky point. I'll give her some extra room here. On the other hand, I don't want it to be too wide nose tip, so I can extend it a bit so I have the freedom to make it a bit more pointy. You see this hammer toe here, it has not enough space, but I simply don't have the modeling freedom at this moment with this cage to make it better. But this is the rough face. Okay, maybe the ball line a bit more backwards. All right. You see that the last has a sharp feather edge here, and then around the heel it's a rounded feather edge. You can choose to have a sharp feather edge around the heel if you want, but I normally do not do that. Okay. Okay. That's good enough for this moment. And now I'll switch on the more detailed cage. I can hide the less detailed cage. Let's switch off transparency to see what I've got. Well, it already comes close, but it doesn't have a real good fit. What I could do now is, let's bake it. The red one is a copy of the green one, if you were wondering. I'm at a control point level now to achieve what I want, but it's still too much work. So what I do now is use this cage instead. I'll lock this mesh for now. Okay, let's start with this hammer toe here. Alright. Switch on transparency again to see what I'm doing. I don't mind if it's a bit narrow here, because those toes have the tendency to stretch a bit to the front, but if I don't want that, I can give it extra room. This kind of decisions is what it's all about. When I make last, I want to make a decision. Do I want to have some extra room here, or do I want it to be more narrow? And I want a cut system that fulfill these wishes. See? And maybe I even want a more detailed modification here, and I don't have a control point over here, but I can do that later on with the final last. It's a bit too much here. Okay. Well, this really comes close. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now is bring all those control points to the surface of the scan. Not all the control points. For instance, these control points here from the forepart, I don't want to match to the scan. But on the hind foot, I want all those control points to be as close to the scan as possible. So what I do, I select those control points that I want to be on the surface of the scan. Let's check if I'm right. I want this one, and this one too. And now I can say, okay, pull those control points to the scan. Okay. I'll repeat that. I'll undo and redo. Here's space, and now, okay, they're on the surface. And you see that here the surface is a bit inside the scan, but it's not much. See? It comes very close now. Okay. I'm not very happy with this shape. Alright. Well, it's not perfect yet, but it comes very close now, and now I want to start modeling at a most detailed level. And for that I will bake this last first and toggle the grasshopper last, switch off the targets, hide this. Oh. Okay. Now we can repeat the trick of pulling all those control points to the surface of the scan. But what I do now is I do not switch on the control points. The control points you see have at places that the curvature is the highest, they have a distance to the surface of the sub D. But I can also switch on the edit points, and those edit points are on the surface of the sub D. So what I do now is pull the edit points to the surface of the scan. First I select all those edit points again. The easiest way is to use lasso. Okay. And I don't want this point to be pulled, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. I do want that one, and that one. Maybe that one. Okay. Let's pull. Now all those points are on the surface of the scan. And now I can start fine-tuning the shape of the last. You see here's a cavity I do not want. I'm not happy with this point here, and I want some extra room on the ankle and here at the heel. But now I have a last with the control points at very specific places, so that I can model it as I want in a very detailed way. So again, you can speed up the video if you want, but I'll show you in real time what I'm doing. I'll switch on the control points, it's easier. Okay, let's start with this point. I'll lock the scan. useful tool is the dragging in the UV direction. Now the blue arrow points in the direction of the normal of the surface. So see, it's in that direction, that direction, that direction, instead of X, Y, Z direction like this. Switch to UVN again. Well, you can spend the rest of your life doing this, dragging control points. But it's just a matter of fine-tuning. And other CAD systems I've seen, they don't allow you to work on this level of detail simply because they don't have the control points at the right places. Shall I give extra room here? Okay. And of course, there's also the question of what I do for the other side, for in this case the right foot. That's for a next video, but at this moment while I'm working, the last of the right foot follows the last of the left foot, but at some point in the modeling, during modeling, I decide to disconnect the right last from the left last. So, but that's not a complicated story, and I'll make another video about that later. And if you're lucky, left and right are the same. Oh. Okay, now let's give some extra room around the heel. That's this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. I switch on the smooth mode. That means that for a certain given distance all the control points follow more or less. I can explain that later. Maybe a bit extra room on the instep. Okay, and I do not use sizes, circumferences. I can do that, but you know, why should I worry about a 2D dimension when I have the 3D dimensions at hand? Right foot. Okay, I think this is okay. Now a last inspection. I'll unlock the scan and I'll hide the scan, and I can switch to rendered mode to have a better idea of bumps and lumps. Maybe this is not so nice. I can smooth it a little bit. And this point. Okay. Looks okay. Now what I also want to do is to make the top surface exactly horizontal. That's quite easy while making the shoe. When you make the heel of the shoe. You have a reference surface that must be horizontal. So to do that, I simply select all those points and I make the Z value 0. So now they're planar. Maybe you can make a bit more. Okay, just a little bit nicer. And now I can cap this. Okay, so now it's closed. And now I have to make a mesh from this last to send it to the milling machine. I know the mesh doesn't have to be that dense because it's nice and smooth. Okay, so this is the mesh and this is the object I can simply export. Send it to the milling facility. Okay, I hope you liked this video. Bye.